I believe we are live now. I'm just saying some stuff up in the background. Currently getting Mr. Saltwater Bets on. Let's see this. I gotta do some stuff on my side. Alright. Sorry about the latency, but this is what happens on first streams. Settings. For some reason, it does not want to allow for my microphone. That's all right. We will hopefully figure this out in a second. All right. Again, apologize. Trying to get this set up real quick. Let's see if there's another way to get him on here. Oh, is this it? Privacy shortcuts. Well, we'll get this figured out. And in the meantime, we're going to start going over some stock information and general information on what the channel is going to be about and all of that other information. And we'll definitely have it set up for next. We'll have it set up for next time. Worst case, if he cannot join us, but apart from that, these streams on Sunday and Wednesday at 6:30 till 8 are primarily focused around going over stock picks. You can see the account that I've set up for this. That's going to get annoying. The account that I've set up here for TD Ameritrade, that's just personally what I like to use and what I've had the most experience with. I've been trading for the last 2 years, and this is the platform that I've used that entire time. So that's just what we're going to go with. So, as you can see, the current account value here is at 0. And I was going back and forth on how much would be a good starting spot, as far as what people are capable of having and what your average person would be able to put into an investment account. Well, that's great. We're just gonna log in on my other screen quickly. But so yeah, that's the whole backstory, is just what can the average person be able to put in. So when you're watching this and going through and being like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, or this is out of my league. You have some people that you can see investing with $200,000 on some of these streams, $300,000, $400,000. That's a lot of money for your average person. So to break that down, I believe I'm going to start with $1,000. I think is a it's a little outside of what a lot of people, at least my age, in their early to mid 20s, probably, could afford right now. But with, tax refunds coming back, you have stimulus checks, you have a bunch of paths. You can start to save up. Honestly, any amount to start is a good amount. I started with $100 was my first deposit back around this time in 2019. So, you can really start anywhere and continue to add as you go. So that's kind of just where I'm picking up as a starting point. Again, it's not too far outside the realm of possibilities, and it's a good enough starting spot where if you've saved up enough money, or you saved up a little bit of money and now you want to look into investing, here's how it goes. So $1,000 will also allow me to be able to break up into more accounts than, let's say, $500 or even less than that. So that's why I'm going with 1,000 to start. I don't currently have it in the account. I'm waiting to link my account to put the money in there and then be able to actually make the investments. But that should be happening Monday or Tuesday. So this will be live by Wednesday. And another part and I'll pull it up here on another screen so I can move it up. But one of the things I like to do is make a timeline, if you will, on how much I want to add and how much percentage I want to make, which is going to be another segment at some point. But the gist of that is basically you just want to be able to say, hey, every month I want to put in $50, $100, whatever you can afford, and stick to that, or increase that as you go along, as you cut out things like, hey, maybe I don't need Netflix since I can use YouTube for free. All of that kind of stuff. So it's really up to the individual on how much they want to put in and how much they want to continue to put in, and what their percentages are, and what their goal is with investing, and all of that. So that's kind of the basic information. So we'll be doing $1,000, and I'm just going to bring it up here. This is kind of what I was talking about. You have your starting balance of $1,000 up here, and I'll zoom in on this so people can see it a little bit better. Where is my view? There it goes. I'm not entirely sure if I know how to use... I use Excel every day. I don't use Google Excel sheets. Well, that's fun. But either way, you can see right here, $1,000, and the percentage, we'll put that in percent. We got 5%, just as a rough estimate for right now. I was just plugging in numbers the other night. And for this stream, I'll be adding $100 per month on top of the 5% gain, which is our goal. So if I go above 5%, great. That's just extra money that I'm going to leave in here. And if I don't make 5%, then we're going to mark the month red. So you can just take January here as month one, which would be July. So this is comparing what you would make investing versus if you just let your money sit in a bank account. Now, this doesn't necessarily take into effect interest rates and the percentage that you make in the bank, but in all honesty, by the time you got maybe down here in this range, it would make a difference. But realistically, that's not going to impact too much as far as that's just the cash amount. If you just had cash under your pillow, this is how much you would have. So this column here is the end of the year balance. So that just comes over here to the December or the 12th, or I guess in this case 11th month, 12th month. Whoop. And it brings the amounts over here. So you can see, even though I started with $1,100, so the $1,000 deposit and then the $100 I put in every month, the difference at the end of the year the beginning of the year is 50 with that 5%, but at the end of the year it's $1,187.57 as long as you make that 5% and add your additional amount, which is $100 here. And the reason why I like this is because you can kind of look and go down the list and see, if you stay consistent, which is going to be impossible because the markets are going to be good sometimes, the markets will be bad some months or some years. So that's going to be really dependent and hard to keep up with. You can make extra here and there, and sometimes you don't always hit the point. So, that's really dependent. But if we were just follow the straight line on investing versus just saving the cash, you have $1 million difference by the end of year 10, investing at 5% a month versus just letting the money sit in a bank account. So that's where the time value of money and why I like investing and why I talk to all my friends about investing and why I put so much research into this and why it's a huge hobby of mine, if you can call it that, is because you can grow your paycheck. If you're just saving your paycheck and putting it in the bank account, and maybe one day you'll buy a house, maybe you do some light investing here or there, or you say, oh, it's just not for me. I'll never put money in the market because I will never have enough. That's where I was for a while. And I was like, oh, well, investing, you need thousands of dollars. And, you look at the S&P or bonds, whatever, it makes, a 2% gain in a year or 7%, I think, is the market average. If I have $100, 7% is going to be nothing. There's no real point to it. But then I just said, all right, you know what? Today I got to just get into it. I had $100 that I could spare in my account. And I just said, all right, here you go. I was going to school and I was finishing up my degree in accounting. And I was working a side hustle, and I just said, hey, I have a little bit of money. Maybe I forgot exactly what it was. I think it was just like my paycheck came in or something. And I just threw the money in to a TD Ameritrade account. And I think the first company I ever bought was GE. And I'll pull it up here. Here we go. Let's get the 3-year. So, what is this? Let's open up the chart here. All right, while that's opening, let's see if we can get, oh, that is not what I was looking for. Okay. Well, if we go back April, if we go back to about, hold on. Sorry about that. If we go back to about, I think it was in here, or was it here? Yeah, it was right in here that I first started. It was going up, but I think I hit this point or something. I made a little bit of money on it. Maybe this dip here, because it was more towards August, September. So it was dipping. I think I made a little bit of money or lost a little bit of money in it. And then it came up to this point, like 12.50, and I knew it was going to go up to 12. But I was very new to the market and I didn't know what I was doing. And I sold it, and I saw that, and I was like, wow, I lost money, and like, I don't know if I know investing, well enough, and all this stuff. And then it just tanked. That's, I believe, the coronavirus, but it was going down before that. But moral of the story was, I thought that I didn't know anything about investing with my first trade because I barely made any money or I lost money. And back then there were fees associated with trades. So every trade you made, it was like $6.99 or whatever. So there was no way me and my $100 investment was going to ever, generate, $7. And make money on top of that. So I felt pretty, you know, like I wasn't going to go anywhere, and I didn't really think that I knew too much about investing, but I kind of just kept up with it, and eventually I just broke through in the sense that now I actually um, I make a good amount of returns. I'm not saying I make money every time or I make 20 to 50% on every trade, but I've gotten better as far as being able to notice trends and being able to put my money in and make it work for me. So with that, I think that we're going to get into a few stocks here. I'm going to try to continue to set up my microphone to get saltwater bets in here, and we will take it from there. I'm just going to pull up the stream real quick on my side just to check. All right, I think we're still doing good here. All right. Bear with me. There, I think we're about ready here. Whoa. Hey, that's Xbox. All right. Sorry. I am fumbling around here, but working on getting old saltwater bets in. That's weird. I don't think my computer likes Facebook Messenger. That's all right. That is so weird why it's not coming up. Well, we'll figure this out by next stream. Worst case. Yeah, I don't know why it's not working. Let me try that. I'm just talking with my cousin right now, and we're going to get him on here. Mr. Saltwater Bets. But in the meantime, let's pull up a certain stock that I do want to get into this week. All right, so the stock I'm looking at right now is Space, SPCE. Now you might be wondering why. Because it just went down from like 55 to 45. Well, the long and simple is this is a very momentum-driven stock. It's, you know, whenever it's in the news, it skyrockets, which is what happened last time. Yeah, they had a launch. I bought in right about here, give or take, and it shot up. And I sold it, I believe, at, what was it, $35 a share, something like that. And while I didn't catch it going all the way up, I did not lose going down here. Now, I still would have made out if I had kept it and sold it at 45. I would have made more money, but that's another key thing with all the stuff that I talk about here is being happy with the with the gain that you've made, with the amount of money that you've made, and getting out of the market. So I bought in at about, I think it was maybe $12, $13 a share, and I got out at 35, like I said. So I made plenty of money on that trade, but I could have made more, but I also could have made less. Now, it's looking pretty high right here, and you might be wondering, well, why would I buy? Like I was saying before, this is a very news-driven stock, and if I just go over here, right, company's name is Virgin Galactic, right? Where is the news? Our first fully crewed rocket-powered test flight is planned to take place on July 11th with 2 pilots, right? And 4 mission specialists, all that. All right. So there was a pretty big spike on, I believe it was Thursday morning or Friday morning. Well, it's 7/4 now. So next Sunday, they'll have their liftoff. So I'm planning on getting in on the stock before that happens, because when it comes out that they've had their first manned space flight, that's going to be a huge development for space and their company product, their company composition, and basically the future of their financial statements, their cash flows, their income. That's what this whole company is based around. So while it doesn't pay a dividend, doesn't have a PE ratio, doesn't really have, it's not really generating income. The thing is, with a stock like this, the whole product line is space travel. So space travel is one of those things where everybody kind of, when they're younger, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a firefighter. It's one of those things that people want to be. Obviously, not many of us grow up to be astronauts, but it's a dream of all of ours, and it's a huge thing for people to be able to go to space. Now, it's not like the common person, the average person doesn't have the ability to go to space. Um, it's not like a plane ticket to, Atlanta or something, or LA. You can just get in a jet and fly. You need special equipment, special rockets, all that kind of stuff. And very few people even are able to go to space, let alone the moon, etc. So, with the ability of a company to provide that service to the public and say, hey, for X amount, which is going to be probably a huge amount. I mean, you think that plane tickets cost a lot? Try going to space. But when they finally have their product and it's all tested and everything's ready to go, people being able to go to space, that's going to be huge, especially for rich people. Rich people like to spend their money on all kinds of things like experience-based or, the Rolls-Royce, all the luxury items. And this is going to be luxury travel. This is going to be the one thing where it's like, they might even have like private cabins or first class for, a lot of money. And, your average person might get, the middle aisle seat and be able to say that they went to space. But the point of this is basically that, they're going to have huge cash flow at some point. Space travel is something that everybody wants to do. And once it's commercially available, a lot of people are going to be jumping on this. So if it's $45 currently, which is, it is a high price for what the company is itself. Don't get that wrong. This company was worth under 20 not that long ago. And if you look at the 1 year, it's been sitting in those high tens, and it's been sitting around $10 for a really long time until they started actually developing their rockets and getting things out. So that's why I like this stock. This could be maybe a future long-term holds. Maybe something that, would be the next Amazon. Or it could be a good short-term gain. Like I said, it's news traded. So with that news article of Virgin Galactic, the first manned space crew, I believe this is the space crew here. Once they have their first manned space flight, that's going to be huge in the news. And I believe that people are going to value that a lot more. So again, I think that's a quick pickup that you can get into and not really have to worry about too much. I have another stock here really quick. Oop. I just have my local watch list on my phone, which is where I have all my stocks here. So Fubu. All right, this one was brought to me by, or Fubo. I like to call it Fubu. But this was brought to me by someone that I talk about stocks with. And if we look at their 6 month here, let's look at the 6 month. All right, so the reason why I like this stock, as you can see, it's kind of been going down a little bit here, but the general trend was it was up at $50, dropped down a little bit below 20, got beat up there, and I think that it has some running room here with the momentum coming back up. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to download Thinkorswim so I can show you guys like SMA lines and trend lines, inline volume, so you can actually get a good look at these trends. I mean, you can look at the general, dip here where it was under 20 and now it's at 30. I think this is a good, short-term stock. And again, this isn't necessarily investing advice. This is my opinion on the stock, and this is what I've told Tim, the guy that I got the stock from. You know, I think that looks good. I might put some money into it once I have the $1,000. I might split it between Space or Virgin Galactic and Fubo TV or Fubo TV. Again, I'm going to call it Fubo, but I might split it between these two just because of those trends, and hopefully make a good little profit this week. Again, I'm not trying to shoot for the stars, no pun intended, investing in a space company. Yeah, little jokes. But yeah, just, something, a little money here and there. Nothing too crazy. I'm not going to try to ride this up to $50 from 30. For me personally, just again, I want to keep this in line with the goals, 5%, adding $100, keeping up with this spreadsheet here. This is the end goal by this time next year. So, if we make 5%, great. Maybe, de-invest some of the money and just put in little bits here and there. Pull the money out and just keep the gain and, play around with a few stocks. Another one that I've kind of been keeping my eye on, and I just kind of see it every once in a while, but I've been thinking about Zillow. I loved Zillow. I got into it on this steep climb here. I've made a lot of money trading Zillow, but at the end of the day, right now, the reason why it's going down is the housing market. This whole stock is based on the housing market, essentially. So depending on, there's a lot of factors, but any factor that affects the housing market affects this stock. And both kind of coincide with the stock market itself. So Zillow, I think, was having a really good time here, climbing up, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the next few months, because summer months are obviously a huge time for people to buy real estate, houses, renting, apartments, all that kind of stuff. And where do people go? Zillow. There's a few other websites, you got apartments.com and you have local realtors and all that, but Zillow is kind of, the Facebook of its industry, if you will. But that's why it's going to be interesting, because this next quarter that's coming up, the second quarter, it's going to be, the financial statements should be there for them. Especially with how the market's been. People are buying houses without even seeing them. They're spending way more money than they have to normally on a house. That goes into a lot of inflation stuff in the market. So it's going to be interesting to see what their Q2 financial statements look like, and I'm assuming that's going to drive the price up, but right now they're kind of flat. Could be starting to kind of maybe edge up here a little bit, but again, there's not enough here to really be able to tell. If anything, the trend's almost going down, and then it kind of hit this little spot, and then it's going to be interesting to see how that stock plays out. And the only reason I bring this one up again is this is a stock, a big stock in its industry, a leader, like I said before, and the industry's kind of been going really well. You can see what the last years looked like, especially with COVID and all of that. This was one of those stocks that took off, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the housing market, spending, the Fed. There's so many things that go into housing loans and the housing market where this stock can be affected, and right now is the hot time for people buying homes and moving. So that's why I like to look at this and just bring it up in the stream here. Alrighty. What's another one we got here? I have not looked at this stock in a hot minute, but Plug Power. So my background is in auditing, and it's kind of funny. They were going up here. I invested. I made a good amount of money in it. Same with Zillow and Space, but it started tanking, and I had sold out right about here. So I really got out right before everything kind of came down on Plug. But the reason why I invested in it was because there was a change in administrations. And just on a quick side note, we're not going to talk about politics necessarily in this stream, but things will come up and you have to take it at face value. As far as actual facts on what politicians look at or what certain administrations look at, and that will actually help you in investing, whether you voted for them or not, or whether you like the policies or not. If you're thinking as an investor, you have to be smart about it. Now, it's not necessarily, bending to anybody or saying that, you just have to go along with them. But if you want to invest, you need to realize all of the things that may affect the market, which one of those is politics, because the government does affect the markets with regulations, who they give subsidies to, and what industries they want to grow during their administration, who's getting the government paycheck, because at the end of the day, that will really turn who's going to be successful and who's not in the market sometimes. And one of those companies I picked was Plug Power, because with the new administration coming in, Plug Power is a renewable resource. They focus on hydrogen cells. So that is one of the new emerging markets. I took an environmental science course, and one of the things that we discussed was actually hydrogen power. Our school was partially powered by a hydrogen cell. I don't know if it was provided by Plug Power, but I do know that we did have a hydrogen cell on campus. So with Plug Power being a renewable resource, the fact of the matter is the new administration coming in, whether you like renewable resources or not, they are focused on this. This is one of their things, which is why I bought into it. And a lot of people figured the same thing, because you can see this general trend around October, November. It's been going up ever since. Now, there was a general trend here, but not as steep as this. And there were some deals signed in here, contracts signed for the next few years with a Swedish company, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm just trying to remember the news article. But that's where the sudden spike came from. Or no, it was France. It was a French company. Pretty sure. Somewhere in Europe, around there. But so the stock was going up. And then right around here, I believe it was the second little dip here, was the company. It turns out right around when the financial statements were being processed, that they found out that there was an accounting error in their books, and that they were not recording, I believe it was accounts payable properly, or accounts receivable, one of those two, which they thought would affect in a material sense the overall financial statements. And for people that don't know, material misstatement is essentially when there's a mistake big enough for it to matter to investors, or whoever reads the financial statements. That's the short rundown. So whatever that materiality was, they basically had to come out and say to their investors, hey, we messed up. So they ran back through the financial statements. They had to go back, I believe it was 3 years for accounts payable, to restate and get an accurate number to the best of their abilities, which came out about here. I think it was like April, May. And it turned out that the effects were not as big as they thought. It wasn't as serious as they had thought. But at the same time, it did kind of tell investors, hey, their books might not always be accurate, and they might have ulterior motives, which is bad when a company lies to their investors to try to make their books look better. Because it happened now, and they say, oh, we fired that person, or we're changing our standards, who's allowed to approve certain things. There's a whole measurement of audit things that you can do to make sure that basically someone isn't able to do what they're not supposed to do, which occurred here. So they kind of figured out their financials, and they said, oh, it's all good. But the thing that kind of stands out to me with this is that it's always a top-down thing. Studying accounting and learning about the fraud triangle and how frauds happen, and material misstatements like this. It's all about basically the message at the top. Sometimes it's a sole individual somewhere in the accounting department that's trying to steal money, but normally that doesn't lead to a material misstatement in a large enough company to have the Big Four audit them. In that case, it's almost always management or upper management, the C-suite, executives, all of that. So at some stage, someone said, hey, our financial statements need to look better, whether it might have been that French deal. It might have been the deal when they went into France, being like, hey, make our accounts look better, make us look in better financial position, so this person will actually make a deal with this, or maybe they'll make a more favorable deal with us. So there's so many things, like trying to show investors that they're making more money, because if you look at the 3-year trend here, there was nothing up until this point, which they kind of started going up, and then boom, skyrockets, tanks. So there's a lot that could go into why they did it. I'm not really going to necessarily dive too deep into that beyond what I already have, but that just gives me a little bit of skepticism. But I think that this is a general good investment for the next few years, just maybe even seeing where things go. I mean, you can invest into things like solar, wind, hydro. There's so many other renewable resources, but this was the one that I picked in particular. And I'm just glad that I didn't catch that crash when it was going down. So that's my story on that one. That's why I like to look at that. Let's look at another. I'm going to throw a big stock on here, one that everybody's familiar with. Oop, I didn't capitalize that out. Yeah, it pulled up, but well, whatever. All right, Apple. So the reason why I like to look at this stock for tonight is just that it's a big stock, and everybody invests in Apple at some point. I invested in Apple. It's a good thing to just kind of hold. I'm going to go into Google here again and look at the Apple stock so I can get a more long-term look at it in the max. So obviously it wasn't really anything before 2000. I mean, in 20 years it went up 270% or 21 cents, which I guess it is what it is. But between 2001 and 2021, in the last 20 years, it's gone up 37,000%, almost 38,000%. So this has been like a huge growing stock. Whenever we did financial statements in class or looked at financial statements, it was always the Apple 10K form, 100 pages of the most boring, monotonous financial information you can get your hands on. And like every company, they say, oh, our goal is to advance human society, blah, 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 all the normal stuff. So I've always kind of just grown up looking at Apple and watching it. So just looking at the stock right now, you can see it's very high. I mean, compared to its 2020 numbers right here, you can kind of see where it dipped. I'm going to go into the 5-year so we can look at that a little bit better. So every stock took a dip right about here with the coronavirus. The general market trended down. So did Apple. And the thing with Apple is all their products come from China. Everything that they sell. The big ones come from China. I'm not sure about everything, but let's just say everything. So they took this dip here, and I was worried about Apple as far as investing in it, because being a Chinese sourced company, like many other companies, not just Apple, so don't think that I'm just trying to beat up on Apple, but being so heavily dependent on China, with the coronavirus shutting down, I mean, the first thing was travel to China was, I believe, the first major shutdown. But I wasn't too sure how the Apple financials would bounce back with all of a sudden all their production being shut down. And a lot of companies, again, were shut down because of this. And, everybody took a hit in the supply chains, but Apple's bounced back since the bottom, give or take. It's gone up 144%. So you would have doubled your money if you bought in at the low. And at the peak there, if we were going to go there, 74%. So yeah, it's pretty much doubled since the pandemic, which has been insane. And that could be in part due to Apple's other services, Apple TV, etc., iTunes, and people being indoors, using their computers more, people buying the new iPhone, all this kind of stuff. But the thing, and this is where I'm going to be critical of Apple, the one thing that I don't really like about Apple is ever since Tim Cook took over, and this has just kind of been a general thing, I'm sure that he's running the company well. I mean, it's a huge company and all that, so respect to where it's supposed to be given. But I just want to look back into it. Yeah, so there was probably a little bit of a downward trend here when Steve Jobs passed away, but and this isn't just me. I heard this the other night on a podcast that I listened to, but Steve Jobs was a huge innovator for Apple. There was always new things coming out and huge updates. There was noticeable differences between the phones and all of that, but lately there hasn't been the same. And it could just be not necessarily that the company is losing its cash cow and becoming more of a dog, but it could be more that innovation's hard. We can only go so far before we have in a way writer's block, right? Before you reach a certain plateau where it's like, all right, we're stuck in the physical, right? How long until Apple's like, oh well, we have this, like those things in Star Wars, where they have the holograms. How long until we can get that? So it's all a process in Apple's production. It might not be just Tim Cook. It could just be the general, where do we go from here kind of stage. It could be building stage for that. But in the last few years, the products haven't been as innovative, which could threaten the Apple market as far as the iPhones. Because if we were just to speak in hypotheticals, if Elon Musk, because he has all these crazy projects, right? I mean, the guy just says, let's make a flamethrower, and then he sells, thousands of them. So, he built Tesla, all this stuff. How long until Elon Musk just says, one night, he's like, you know what? I have an idea. Let's make a hologram phone, or like a phone that has a hologram, FaceTime is now like you can actually see the person. How long until we get to these technological breakthroughs that will greatly advance the industry? So that's just a question for Apple. I'm not saying that it's a dog necessarily. I'm not saying that it's not a great investment. I mean, obviously you can see the growth here has been huge the last decade. So who knows how much further Apple has to go? I mean, again, you look at rising markets. You have China becoming a huge market, and everybody loves Apple. So everybody uses an iPhone. I have an iPhone personally. So, all right. And since we mentioned it, another stock that I'd like to look at is Tesla. Let me just check on something really quick. Try and get old saltwater bets. I think we're about to get him on here. Sorry about this. Just in the background, there's a lot of technical issues as far as getting all this set up, so bear with. While we're waiting on that. Alright, so this is Tesla. Obviously you can see Tesla's almost $700 a share, which is insane if you look back here, under $100 per share. Honestly, it's probably getting closer towards $50 a share. What is it? It won't let me. Oop.
Dude.
All right. Hey, what's up, man?
This actually works really well. This is perfect.
Awesome. Well, you are now live on here. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'll let Mr. Betts introduce himself.
Yes, honor to be here. The first big introduction. Well, not the first, but the first on this show. Thank you for having me, first off. Yeah, nickname is Mr. Betts, or Saltwater Betts to be specific. Real name is James. We're just glad to go talk about what's been working for us tonight. And without further ado, I'll let Aaron take over here.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. So I've kind of been running it solo. So far, we've just been having technical difficulties this entire time. I'm trying to run the stream and get this thing set up and download things. And so, but it's, you know, it's awesome to have James on here. And we actually talk quite a bit about investing and stocks and all different kinds of investing all the time. And this is just kind of a passion of both of ours. And kind of got to the point where it's just like, hey, let's kind of do it. So that's why we're here. And, you know, we want to provide this information for individuals that may not have, you know, all the means to necessarily get a formal education or, you know, have any other abilities than to go onto YouTube and watch us, a couple of quote unquote professionals, we'll use that word loosely, discuss things. But yeah, so my main focus here is stocks. Obviously, I've been talking about stocks all night. And then James, you want to kind of talk about what you invest in?
Yeah, absolutely. And also to give more context, we both are in our young 20s. Aaron has a background in accounting and finance, and I have mine in logistics and finance. did my undergrad at Ohio State. Aaron got his master's in ECU and undergrad. So the nice part about this is that we're young. We do have a college background, but this is really just two things that really, like Aaron said, require no college background, where we've made a really nice, solid chunk of money where a lot of people said there's no money to be made. So I really think what we want to touch upon this is that for both of us, we're young college guys. Really, we didn't put a lot of money into these things, and it made us good money. To give you just a quick overview before I dive into it, in 8 days, I've made net profit, including all losses, just from sports betting, $2,600. So, and that's really with a total of probably like $400 into it. And you didn't even need that much to make a lot of the money. A lot of the money was off on $100 bets that like net profited $900 wins. So this is really what we want to go into, is like, you don't need a lot of money to actually win some money that could really help you out as far as making rent, making payments. I've seen it on Twitter, so definitely excited to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's all, again, what the individuals kind of want to go into, but in both of our experiences, we're not ashamed to hide it or to not talk about it like some people. But we took losses in the beginning. When I was investing in stocks, I took losses. Some friends that I've helped along the way get into stocks, I remember their accounts were down, 20% a day, or, they took a loss of 50% on a single stock in their portfolio over the course of a couple weeks or months. And now it's like they actually have a feeling for it. They actually kind of are like, all right, normally I would have said, yeah, sure, whatever, let's invest in that company. But now with my knowledge, that wouldn't be a smart investment. So you get a little bit pickier. You know a little bit more. You don't know everything, because nobody can say like, oh yes, this stock is going to go up 100%, invest all your money into it, or hey, this team's going to win. But we've worked out different things as far as trends that we see, or James has his whole method of the teams that he likes, or whatever it is, but you need experience in it. You can't just get into it and give up on it. So
yeah, definitely going off of that. A lot of people are probably thinking like, well, what the hell makes these guys qualified for what they're saying? There's millions of YouTube videos and stocks and betting. So I'll go right into my answers. That I have a win ratio of 75% for over 86 games now. You could Google any professional bettor, and 60 to 60, upper 60s is considered like professional. I have it all documented on Google, Excel actually, to be specific. Every single bet slip, all proven, timestamps from the casino and everything to prove all my wins and losses. So this is definitely not just us talking out of our ass, so to speak. It's 100% us saying that we did try things that didn't work. Like in the beginning, I certainly got burned, but now it's covered everything, where it's covered my initial getting burned and everything. So
right,
profit,
and
with it.
Yep. And a huge thing is as far as betting, like I can 100% attest to James here. He has made $2,600 or whatever it's been. It's somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head, but I do know that he's made this money. He sends me we actually are on the phone, and he's like, they just scored a home run. I'm like, I don't even know the team, but woo.
You get very excited.
Yep. Oh yeah. But it's something that we like watching sports or looking at the stocks and stuff. I mean, it's what I do for a living. But the main thing is like, we're not trying to come on here and like hide things or be like, hey, let's pump ourselves up. I mean, I'm an auditor. My whole job is to kind of sniff that out and make sure that people are doing things correctly. And as far as James's stuff, like I don't currently get into sports betting. It's just something that I haven't done yet. I've heard a lot from James, and he's talking to me about it. But as of right now, like that's not something that I'm in. I wouldn't have any reason necessarily to be like, oh yeah, he made $10,000, but that's the truth. And I've made probably about the same, maybe a little bit more in 6 months or so this year trading. And I don't trade every day, but I've made a good chunk of money. And then again, that's with a few $1,000s, 2,000-3,000, something like that, I think, in my account normally. But yeah, no, sports betting, so far it's kind of, he's kicking my ass, but we'll see how things go.
Yeah, that's the thing is like also a banker here, like obviously go over people's finances, and we're not, these are definitely things on the side where the whole point of this was for people that didn't have big money to invest, because traditional ways of investing, I think a lot of them require a lot of money to sit on dividends being paid to you, like large cap investing where you're going off of those big companies. And I think a lot of people, your average Joe or anyone, struggles with, hey, I don't have a lot of money, but I do want to make bets, or I do want to make quick cash. And sports betting, with my method where you average out and all that, making $2,600 in 8 days, you could certainly do it. Most of my bets require, and I never go over like $120 because they're parlays. So an average free game, 4-game parlay at $60 typically pays you out, depending on the spreads, anywhere from $200 to $480. So you're hitting most of those at like a 75% win ratio. It will not only cover the losses in between, but you will get quite a bit of profit. So these are things we found where so many people were like, there's no way you can make money doing that. Like, there's no way it's possible. There's money doing that. And, or short trading. There's so many stigmas where it's just like, you can't make money doing that. And a lot of people poo-pooing us, and a lot of like doubt and a lot of that. And we just have it all documented. And my other cousins actually have seen this, and they've gone nuts, and my coworkers. And I just continue to just like text Aaron at like 12 when I hit another win or something, and everyone's like, oh my God, like everyone's like, actually, like he's actually doing this. Like, wow, like I didn't think, because like that's the whole point, is like there's so many different ways to make money, but I think a lot of people that don't have a lot of money to invest, that also don't want to maybe risk too much of what they have, and you have to be very careful with how much money you take out. But if you have some control, definitely doable.
Yeah, and that's the main point, is self-control, which is one thing that we're going to touch on at some point. But with all this investing stuff, you have to, and I've kind of said it before, but like you have to kind of know when to get out, when to make your money, when to step away, because I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've known a lot of people that are guilty of it. I mean, we're all guilty of it at some point. If you're in investing where, you see something going up and you feel really good about it, or, you're on a hot streak on, the games that you're betting on, and whatever it is, and you get so pulled into it that you don't even realize how much money you could make if you pulled out. Like, I remember we both invested in Clover when it was at $9, and we were just watching it skyrocket, and it was just like, oh hey, yeah, I just made another $1,000 today. Like, it was nothing. And I'm pretty sure I told you, James, like, you have to take some time off after that, because you're going to look at a $100 gain in a day and be like, oh, that's nothing. Like it gets so dangerous to where you're like trying to chase that, but you have to step away after a huge gain like that, because you're like, whoa, I just got super lucky and made a bunch of money that I wasn't necessarily supposed to even get. Let me take a step back, because I've just made this huge amount of money. I can afford to take a few days off and just leave the trading for a little bit. And that'll help you kind of reset and then be like, all right, I got $100 gain today. That's huge. And basically like refocus your mindset. So,
Yeah, it's the same thing with betting. I actually talked to another coworker of mine that actually made quite a bit too back in the day. Kind of doing what I was doing. He actually made almost like 46,000 at some point. So this would be like me hopefully long term. But he said, and this is one thing we talked about in both of our experiences with betting. There's some nights you go on a hot streak. Like first off, kind of like go back a little bit. I'm a very risk-adverse guy. Like Aaron knows this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's also right in line with my job, like being an anchor, going over people's finances. I'm very cheap with everybody. I'm very like, like with stocks, risk-adverse before like all this, and I still am for the most part. But I remember betting one of the first nights, like doing this method, like I hit 13. Yeah, it was my biggest win. It was $1,396 in the night, and it was definitely one of these things where like it blew my mind because like I never thought I would get into sports betting, and like I hit 900 the other night with Aaron off of $100 wager. So just multiplying your money by 9. The night I hit 1396, it was a 400 total wager. So just like multiplying my money by more than 3. And it's like, what happens typically is the night after you bet again, you usually lose. When I talked with my coworker, that was like, he said, we usually get a big win like that, just take 2 to 3 days off.
Yeah.
And I agree with him more because, like, especially when you're at your overall win ratio for every game broke out 75%, which mine is. You don't have to bet every day. If you do hit a big night like that, maybe like take the next 1 or 2 days off. But
right, and I'm just gonna do it for the stream.
Yeah.
Sorry. What would you say the average win is? Like 3 times the money or something?
So every game I do, what I found, and I talked to my other coworker who's had a lot of success with betting, is a parlay. You're betting on the outcome of. The best way to do it is, it doesn't require a lot of money if you do a parlay. Like if you do a straight bet, most straight bets are anywhere where you have to put $150 on one team or more just to win 100. Where if you at least bet on 2 games, you could usually put $10 and it will be you pay out 20 or $30. So you're betting on the probability of 2 teams to win. So my coworker that's also had a lot of experience betting, we both found that like you're gonna hit a lot of them if you're just betting on 3 outcomes to 4 outcomes. And you're typically tripling or quadrupling your money, depending on what the spreads are set for. And I found anytime you go over 4 games, 5 games, like 9 out of 10 times you're not going to hit them. But all my big wins have been 3 to 4 game parlays.
Right, and I just want to put it out there, if you were to hypothetically, and this is just an example to kind of run over numbers, but if you were to triple your money every time you put down for a game, and you were to do a $100 ticket every time, 4 $100 tickets at $300 winning per ticket, you would put in $400 and win $900. Now that's granted you lose one of those tickets at a 75% win. So in average, you would make $500 off of that $400. If you were to hit the 3 out of 4, and if each one were to triple the money, in that controlled scenario, that's what it would be like. So that's
the great part is it covered a lot of your losses too.
Right, and that's
profit.
Right. That's the huge thing is, are you covering like in an aggregate? Like if you win 75 out of 100 times, maybe if you were to put like one $500 ticket down and the others are 100 and you lose that 500, well, that's going to really skew it. But, and if you hit it, it's going to skew it the other way. But at the end of the day, it's kind of just being consistent where it's like a $50, $100 bet. And in my opinion, just keeping consistent with it. And then once you've grown the pot enough, then be like, all right, well, now I'm going to move up to a $200 bet or whatever it may be. But I'm not the king of bets. Mr. Saltwater Bets is, so.
Well, that's what I do is I manage a pot now of $2,700. So the number one people fall into this trap is that they get a big win, like that 1,300 win I do. And then they go back to the casino the next day and they're like, I won 1,300. Let's bet 1,000. And then their pot's down to 300. No room for error, and there's always room for error in sports betting, no matter how good you are. So then before they know it, they blow through that pot. They start taking away from their principal and their bank account, and then they're done. And then you see the horror story. So when you have a pot like mine of 2,700 that you're playing with house money, and you're only betting 60 to 100, with my overall win ratio, there's so much room to play with that 2,700 as long as you have the self-control to stay at 60 to 100 per bet. I'll read off a recent example. $120 wager, it paid me out $566.40. I just bet on the Bucks versus Hawks NBA game being under 224. There's great statistics behind that for the matchup. The Bucks winning, and then a soccer game being over 2.5 goals, meaning at least 3 goals scored in the game. That's it. $120 wager with, the 2,700 pot in there. It was obviously a little lower before that, but there was plenty of room that if it didn't hit, I still had plenty of money left over from the house money. Not my own money, from just house money, meaning money won from bets. Only using that to pay for more bets. And that hit for $566.40. So it really is about just using your house money to buy more bets, and obviously to keep a big chunk, because that will pay for your credit card, gas, groceries, and then all your work deposits. They're not even touched, because like literally the people that are successful that are doing what I'm doing, and there's plenty of people out there, it's not very well known, they're out there, they're like literally paying for their everyday stuff with just their sports winnings, and they're able to buy more and just average out, cover losses with wins, and it's the name of the game.
Correct. And that's something that I'm kind of interested in, but I'm not sure if sports betting is legal in my state. But in general, it's just a good rule of thumb to have, whether you're investing in stocks or betting or whatever your method is, crypto. Don't get greedy with it. Make your money, get out, and be happy with how much you made. And that's why I like having my spreadsheet here, where I said my goal is 5% a month. If I make that 5%, boom, I can get out. I don't have to put all my money in, and I can continue going down the path, and I can make extra money every month if I want. But at the end of the day, if I can stick to that rough, 5% a month, then, like I said at the beginning of the stream, within 10 years, the difference is $1 million, over $1 million. Now, granted, this doesn't take tax into effect. You do have to kind of average that in. But the point of the matter is you make a lot more money investing as long as you're smart with it and you say, hey, this is how much I want to make. Then, it's a lot better than just putting your money in your bank account or, spending money or, not saving in general. So, that's a huge key.
Yeah, and as bankers, we do that all the time. We obviously push for, obviously whatever bank you work at. We'll disclose. They obviously want you to get over to their Merrill investing arm or whatever investing arm that the bank has, because we all want money to grow. From a very risk-averse person that wasn't doing that, you don't grow your money. You can be like, oh, I don't trust the stock market, whatever. You're just gonna find yourself kind of in some rough patches where you're gonna really wish that you had more money to go pay for bills and all that, and sometimes you can't just completely rely on career growth to do that. You really have to make your money grow. The nice thing about this is I love sports. I'm so super passionate about it. I absolutely love it that this is the thing on the side that's giving me a huge legway up just on everyday purchases and stuff like that in just such a short period of time. And like with Aaron, the investing has really helped pay for like car stuff and all that.
Oh man.
So making your money grow, and like especially when you like doing it, is so important. That's the whole point of our message, is that you need, especially, I don't even say when you're young, you just really need to find something that works for you.
Right. And, one of the things that James is kind of touching on there is when we invested in Clover, I needed some repairs done to my truck. And the gains that we made in our time investing in Clover, even though I only had $2,000 to $3,000 in, actually ended up paying for the majority, if not all, of the truck repairs, which were expensive, to say the least. But that's the power of investing, and you basically just have to stick to your plan and stay consistent with it, and continuing to make it grow, because you could have the best paying job in the world, and if you don't invest, or you don't invest smartly, you could still end up broke and not know what you're doing with your money. That's why accountants exist. That's why tax practices exist. And everybody, wants to rag on the rich. And the thing is, it's like they have the money. They're going to pay people, lawyers and accountants, to invest their money and get away with all the tax cuts and, loopholes that they can, because they're smart. They're not just putting money out there and, saying, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. They got people that are the best of the best, working for them, and they're going to make their money grow at the end of the day. That's just how it's going to go. And that's how you have to think. You have to think like, all right, I don't have a team of accountants and lawyers. I'm my own accountant, I guess you could say, for whatever good that is. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to think like them. You have to get into something and make that money work, or else it's either just going to sit in the bank and you're going to have the invisible tax every year of inflation, which is, basically your money's worth less every single year, or you just go out and you spend your money on things that you don't necessarily need. And, I'm guilty of that, you could say. I have things, that I don't need, but at the end of the day, I'm still working towards my investment goals. And my end goal, like I was kind of talking with James, was to get into real estate, which requires a good amount of money down. So right now I'm using stocks and other means of investing to get that nest egg, if you will, for down payment on a piece of property. But along that way, we're going to talk about stocks, we're going to talk about all these different things. And then once I do get into real estate, mention that in the podcast, be like, hey, this is how much I made, or this is, the things that you need to look out for, or whatever. So that's kind of the journey that we're going to be going down. But really quick, I have Coca-Cola pulled up here because we were kind of talking about stocks that we've been told about. We'll put it that way. Nicely. But you kind of see here, if we don't take in the last few years, which every company's gone up, there's some growth here. But this is kind of one of the stocks that James and I, we kind of joke about. Obviously, it's done well. If you held it since 1981, you made some good money on it. But we kind of just laugh about this stock because it doesn't necessarily go anywhere, and it's one of those dividend-paying stocks. So.
Yeah, because I think, like, going back to, common stigmas and, like, what we're told is, like, just S&P and Coca-Cola. And especially with sports betting, I always thought, before I even made the sick killing I'm making, now my colleagues are like, holy shit. I always thought it was all, like, scammers, and I always thought it was just, like, the stupidest thing ever. I thought, only idiots would bet on sports. And, like, all they do is lose money. That's everyone. Everyone's like sports betting, lotto tickets. Like, no way. No one ever profits, right? And then, sure enough, right now, like, just managing the pot and doing what I'm doing, it's like, holy shit. It's definitely to prove that you can't always have a close mind to everything. And I don't think, just following the general advice of, like, buying Apple and buying all this stuff, people are wondering why they're not having success with it. It's like, well, you're closed-minded and you're just following the herd, generally it's not going to yield you great results. I'll tell you that. We've tried that.
Yep.
No success of it.
Right.
Documented success. Like Aaron, I have a spreadsheet for every bet. I have the date. I have the time. It's public information. You can literally look up how I put a win and loss next to the game. You can look up the date on MLB.com, NBA.com, and it will have the results. And I have all the timestamps put before the games to prove it too. So
Right.
this isn't just us like touting out like some bull crap. It's actually like everything's documented to the penny.
Right. And that's one thing as far as like sports betting. I remember when you were first getting into it, one of the things was you were following this guy and, it was like, oh, he posted this win. Oh, he posted this win, like this is looking really good. And I kind of, was in the part of like, oh, sports betting is sports betting. And that guy was his quote unquote premium picks. They weren't, premium, if you will. They weren't good. And that's what you see a lot of times is people will hop on and get a following and they make these picks and they're like, oh, premium picks. And that's where they make their money is with these subscriptions. And they don't really necessarily, I'm not going to say they don't care about the betting because maybe they have their thing that they think works. Maybe they go out and, they say the team's name and they throw a marble, and if it lands in the bucket, then that team's going to win. I don't know what their decision-making skills are here, but, whatever it is, they weren't doing great. But in this case with James, we've actually gone over how he makes his picks, and there's actual research that goes into it. Same thing with my stock picks, like I was saying with Space before. The reason why I want to get into Space is because of the news that's come out, and I've traded it, and I know whenever there's news like that, it's going to jump up. So there's actual stuff that we do behind the scenes in our own time, researching and looking at things, and Fubo, hearing that from someone and looking at it. We have people that we talk to about this kind of stuff, and it's not just let's see here. Sports games. Let's see who's playing. Well, that's just going to... Whatever. Let's say it's like the Red Sox versus Yankees, because I'm from Massachusetts. Let's just say, oh, well, the Red Sox are totally going to win. Maybe the Red Sox haven't won against the Yankees all year, and that's a terrible bet to make. Or, whatever the case may be. Or the Patriots, like this past season weren't great, but let's just say a Jets fan, right? Betting that the Jets are going to make it to the Super Bowl. No offense, Jets, but that was impossible.
Right.
So it's things like that. Like there's actual time spent on this. And again, we're not, out here trying to necessarily, I'm not here making money. The live streams don't pay, obviously. This is our first stream, and this was never about the money. This is all about helping individuals and helping people build that network, or opening their eyes to certain stocks that they might not have seen before, or different investment strategies like making sports bets. That's what I'm in it for personally, and that whatever comes may come. Maybe at some point, there's something set up where it's more one-on-one, or I have an actual course to go through that really dives into details of everything that I look at, and stuff like that. But that's not the reason why I'm doing this. So that's just the honest truth. I did say that we would run till 8, and it's 7:56. So James, if you want to run for a little bit, kind of get any final thoughts out?
Yeah, just kind of recap what Aaron said. Definitely want to emphasize that stock picks and sports betting, just as my dad, so closely related. What you do see on social media a lot is, like Aaron said, people being very manipulative, charging premium packages for stocks and sports picks, and they really just make a raking of that. Definitely got chewed with me going into one sports betting package, and now I'm making the killing just by doing your own research. So like, whether it's Aaron or whatever you're doing, do your own research. Don't follow any packages or any of that nonsense. Don't do packages. Overall, just don't do it.
Right.
It really is very similar. There's a lot of manipulative people out there, but the whole point is that these are two things where there's not a lot of money involved, and it can make you a lot of money if you're smart about it, if you put the research in. So that's the main points we're trying to hit.
Right. And like James said, this is all just our opinions on stuff. This is what we see. James has his formulas, his research, whatever he does for the sports betting, and that's how he comes to his decisions. I look at a stock, for a lot of them, I've traded a lot, so I know how the stock reacts to certain things. I read news articles, I see things coming up, I hear things from other people, I look at trends, the SMA lines, inline volume. There's a lot of things I look at, and that's just kind of where I come from it. And you have to kind of pick those things up. That's the whole point of this, is to kind of go over things and have the viewers learn about that kind of stuff so they can replicate it in their own life, in the sense that, if you get into stocks, hey, maybe I didn't catch the first few trends, but now I'm starting to catch on. Now it's like, all right, that's starting to look good. Maybe that's not looking good. You start to internalize that, and you start to learn about that. And that's really what this is all about, is not just, hey, this stock looks good, and then you just run into your account and you dump, your whole account into it. That's not what this is about. Now I'll go over stocks like I did tonight and be like, oh, that looks good. I don't know about that. I have to see about that. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, make your own decisions, make your own bias on it, and handle it from that point. But that's going to do it for us tonight. We're going to do this again on Wednesday, like I said, and Sundays at 6:30 to 8. Hopefully no technical difficulties next time. I cannot guarantee that. And I will be having a camera for next time. I'm just waiting for some things to come in and get everything hooked up. We're kind of, running a little ragged over here. We're getting things set up, but hopefully it'll be a full setup soon, and we'll have the cam on, and start to get some people in the chat and giving their suggestions for stocks to look at, and maybe we'll even go over some bets at some point, all depending on whatever James wants to do, and we'll kind of create a little schedule. So with that, James, you ready to sign off?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you once again for having me, and look forward to the next session.
Absolutely, man. And thank you, everyone, for coming out. It's been a great time, and supporting everything that we do here, and just having fun. So with that, going to be logging off, and we'll see you Wednesday.